Tonight's keynote. Let's talk about our two speakers real quick. We have Larry Sanger, who's the co-founder of Wikipedia and CIO of Everpedia, the new blockchain-based system that you're going to hear about. And also Jeremy Goodshea, New York Times bestselling author, who's going to really open our minds about how to think about innovation and future technologies. So first up, please help me in welcoming to the stage the co-founder of Wikipedia and an Ohio native, Larry Sanger. Come on up, Larry.
Hello, everyone. So I'm kind of curious, how many people here are from outside of Ohio? Actually, a fair number. Okay, and then I'm going to do a little bit more, poll taking, if you don't mind. How many people here are actual programmers? That's like what they do in their day job. Okay, fair number. How many people are like business executives, investors, and other people in that part? Yeah, I think more. How many people don't fit in either of those categories, like lawyers or whatever? Whoa, what the hell? Wow, that must be, wow. That's very interesting. Thank you. It's great that there is a blockchain conference happening in Ohio. I've been to like 15 of these things in the last year since I started working for Everpedia last September. It's the first one in Ohio, and it's the biggest, so hats off to the organizers here, Blockland. It's great. It's an international phenomenon I've come to understand just by personal experience. I've spoken, I don't mean to brag, but this is where people have brought me in Dubai and Oslo and Prague, and I'm going to go to Ireland next year, and I've been different places in the United States, and so it's fantastic that it's finally close to home. I actually drove here from Columbus because that's where I'm located. I went to Ohio State, got my PhD in philosophy, and from there went into web entrepreneurship. And I just stuck around, basically eschewing the East and West Coasts because they suck. Yeah. We can do great things here in the great state of Ohio. So I want to explain why I am getting into blockchain. I view it as a natural extension of open source software principles and the old kind of file sharing, but on steroids, and it really represents, to my mind, the culmination of a lot of those trends over the years. And so I think I can hopefully explain why I'm excited about this. It doesn't have to do with making a lot of money from investing in tokens. I think that's, and the people who start businesses that are just, motivated by that are bottom feeders. Well, okay, that's too strong. That's much, much too strong. I'm just saying there's so much more to blockchain, right? It has to do with decentralization and making it possible for people to connect with each other without intermediaries. And when it comes to knowledge collection, the possibilities are really exciting. So I am co-founder of Wikipedia. I am now the CIO of Everpedia. I had my start, as I said, as an academic. I taught for a few years, actually between starting Wikipedia and Wikipedia becoming famous. So my role in Wikipedia was I named it, I proposed to use the Wiki software, to build a new encyclopedia. I led the way in adapting the software, which previously was like sort of connected bulletin boards, to the purpose of writing an encyclopedia. I wrote a lot of the original rules and policies for Wikipedia, and I gathered a lot of the community for the first couple of years of the project. If there's one thing that I have learned about knowledge, it is that knowledge is easy. Not easy, it's hard. And I think we are given an illusion that knowledge is easy because, you know, we can pick a device like this up and ask it questions, and it gives us answers. But that's just information. That's just giving us some answer, which we may or may not have assimilated into our web of belief. And that is the thing that constitutes knowledge. Knowledge is something that happens in the head. It's not what a server puts on the screen for you. And in order to be knowledge, it actually has to be part of a well-justified web of belief. Emphasis on well-justified if you're talking about anything that's complex. And the problem with that and the internet is that we have this illusion, as I say, that simply getting the piece of information is enough. So we've taken care of the quantity problem. Answers are abundant. Now we have to work on the quality problem. And I actually think that the decentralization that blockchain affords is going to enable us to work together in certain ways that will make it possible for us to solve the quality problem. So I think we can do better than Wikipedia. Wikipedia is huge and it's useful, right? But it is also limited in the number of people who are using it. Not using it, but developing it. There's only 12,000 people, according to one recent poll, who had enough edits in the system in the previous month to be able to vote for the administrators on Wikipedia. And that doesn't take very many edits. And it's a top 5 website, right? Just think of how many millions, in some cases billions of people are contributing to YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all of the rest. Wikipedia, top 5 website, is being maintained actively by 10,000 people or something. That is, I think, not acceptable, really. There should be millions of contributors, right? Well, why aren't there? Why aren't there? Well, I mean, you might say it's because writing for an encyclopedia is not nearly as interesting and sexy or whatever as becoming the latest YouTube star or developing your career on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. Okay, maybe, but there are hundreds of millions of people with college degrees across the world. And I can't believe that only 10,000 of those people would be interested in working on an encyclopedia. It just doesn't seem right to me. No, the problem is that Wikipedia is just one community. I could criticize Wikipedia here. I could go on and say that it's kind of a weird community, it's insular and so forth. That doesn't matter, really. There's no single community. This is not like Facebook, right? Facebook allows you to choose your friends. Wikipedia does not. Wikipedia forces whoever wants to work on the world's biggest encyclopedia to work together, all right? You have to work with those people if you want to work on the world's largest encyclopedia. Isn't that a problem? It is, actually, I think. What if you don't like the community for whatever reason? What if you don't like the policies? What if you want an encyclopedia that is actually biased in some particular direction? or that has less of a bias than Wikipedia does, or whatever. So there are other problems, as we will see. But let me shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about Everpedia. So again, Everpedia is the company that I joined about a year ago. I am not a co-founder of Everpedia, but I can say at least that I was sort of around a few months, as of a few months after they got started. So there were a couple of UCLA students who were soon joined by a few others in the Westwood neighborhood, UCLA area of LA. And they had the notion that what there needs to be is an updated version of Wikipedia. It needed to have a more modern design, and as you can see here, it needs to be open to all kinds of different topics, they thought. One of the co-founders was just upset that he couldn't have a Wikipedia article about himself. So I demonstrated this principle. I wanted them to prove that they'd actually let me have an article about anything. So I made an article about my left thumb, and it's still there. So it makes the project more open. And of course, this doesn't mean it's just garbage, right? It actually has to be well documented, and I actually have well documented information about my thumb. But there's all kinds of information out there that is not in Wikipedia because Wikipedia has that policy of notability. And then there's the problem of design. Because Wikipedia, all the important decisions about Wikipedia are supposed to be made by consensus of the participants in the community. It's really hard for Wikipedia to make any significant changes to pretty much anything. And that includes the design, which is why the Wikipedia design looks pretty much the same as it did back in 2003. And our design is much better. So the Everpedia guys, they took the 5 million articles of the English language Wikipedia and forked it in 2016, I think it was. And they put a new face on it. So at about that time, so I started talking to them, as I say, a couple of months after that. They were trying to get me on board, and I was saying it's a little early. But I started giving them some advice. But at about that time, I came up with an idea that I want to explain that is relevant because actually Everpedia is going to execute this idea. I call it Greater Wiki. So the idea here is that if the problem with Wikipedia is that it is just one community, then maybe what we should do is just get rid of the whole idea of a community writing an encyclopedia. Maybe instead what we should do is just collect all of the encyclopedia articles that are online and make them all available from one place, and also invite people to rate them all, and make it easy for people to add new links to new articles on the same old topics, which could also be rated, and then they could leapfrog in the rankings. So you can imagine, for example, a page about God, for example, and there could be dozens of different encyclopedia articles about God on the page, linked from the page at least. And then users could rate each one, and then once there's enough rating data, then there's an interesting ranking. And the top ranked article about God would probably be a really, really good article, right? Probably you would want to go to such a place if you were looking specifically for an encyclopedia article before you went to Wikipedia, or even before you went to Google. Right? Because Google is a popularity contest, and Wikipedia is built by just one encyclopedia. Greater Wiki, which is going to become a component of Everpedia, Greater Wiki is going to give you the best rated article. Now, you might say, okay, but what if I disagree with most of the other people? Like, I'm a Christian and there are too many atheists who are giving wrong ratings of articles. Or I'm an atheist and there's too many Christians giving wrong ratings of the articles about God. Well, then what we do is we allow people to volunteer information about themselves, about their biases, and things like their college degrees, their sex, their nationality, their I don't know, professional associations, whatever. And then you can slice and dice the rating data so that you could look at that, at the top rated article according to Christians about God, or the top rated article according to Muslims, according to atheists, or whatever. So I think that would be really cool. I think that if we were simply to build such a thing, which we're going to do next year, they will come, right? There are not many ideas of which I say that, right? It's usually all in the execution. Well, this would still be in the execution, but we're going to get the execution right. But it's one of those ideas where if you build it, people are going to come and start participating in a neutral protocol to rate the world's knowledge because it's just so obviously needed, right? This is going to be the idea that solves the problem of fake news, if you want to use that phrase, right? This is going to allow us to identify what is the real scoop according to the experts, or according to the people who are ideologically correct, according to your lights, or according to your religion, or whatever it might be, right? You'll get the real news. So I was trying to persuade the Everpedia guys to work on this. So I was between gigs, and I took a trip out to LA, and they were trying to persuade me to get on board, and I was trying to persuade them to work on Greater Wiki. But they were too busy getting traction for everpedia.org. And they did that very well. I was actually very impressed. It is now a top 1,500 site in the US, 2 million unique monthly users, 200,000 returning monthly users. It's got 1 million articles on top of the 5 million that we started with from Wikipedia, 18,000 contributors. And so that was really cool. And so I didn't agree to join them at the time, but then about a year ago, last September, I got a call from the president of Everpedia, Sam Kazemian, and he explained that Everpedia was thinking of moving to the blockchain. And he asked, well, do you know what that means? And I said, well, kind of. I've read a few articles and I have a rough idea, but I wasn't like really a fanboy or anything yet. And Sam explained, and he said that this would make it possible to execute the Greater Wiki idea. And in fact, he and I agreed very well at the time that blockchain is the perfect technology to execute a sort of decentralized neutral protocol, which is exactly what was needed for Greater Wiki. And of course, there are all kinds of other great benefits that accrue to a pre-existing encyclopedia project, which is what Everpedia was. I want to emphasize that if you're going to start a blockchain company, it's a good idea to actually have a product first before you actually put it on the blockchain. And I think that should really be standard practice. And that's what we did. So I joined them, and a couple of months later, we raised $30 million in traditional VC funding from Galaxy Digital's EOS Ecosystem Fund. So that includes Mike Novogratz and the Block One people. Those are the people behind EOS. And so that gives us a very nice runway, I'm happy to say. And our burn rate so far is pretty low. And we have been nose to the grindstone ever since, developing Everpedia. So the following, I think, should constitute a nice little case study of how a utility token might work and why you might be excited by one. So here goes. We're going to develop Everpedia. I shouldn't say we're going to, because it's already happened. We are in the thick of it right now. We are developing Everpedia in 2 phases. So in phase 1, well, and actually I'm going to start here. We launched the Everpedia network on the EOS blockchain in July, just last July. We did an airdrop, and 51% of our tokens were given away to EOS holders. So basically, the EOS holders collectively control the Everpedia blockchain. Our token is called IQ, and so the way it works is if you write an article, if you edit an article, if you up or down vote an article, then you're rewarded in IQ. And tokens represent votes that allow editors to govern the network and also to up and down vote new edits to the blockchain. The more tokens that a person has, the greater their incentive to keep the quality of the Everpedia network high. But actually, the minimum requirement to get an article or an edit into the Everpedia blockchain, I think, it really should be low. It should be easy to get something onto the blockchain, because otherwise, the editorial decisions are being made by people based on how many tokens they hold, and that is no indication of quality, of their ability to judge quality. And so that's sort of how it works now, but that's going to change in phase 2. So a little bit on the technical detail. If you're interested in the technical detail, you can go to GitHub, search for Everpedia white paper, and it'll come up. So we have 3 modules in our blockchain described in the white paper. There is the token module, as I've already described. A certain number of tokens are mined daily, and the amount actually inflates over time. And the idea is that the governance module then determines the smart contracts that run the blockchain, all 3 different modules. The article module doesn't actually have all of the articles on it. It has pointers to articles and contains the actual blocks when people check in their edits. But the content of Everpedia, of the Everpedia network of encyclopedia articles, is on IPFS. So the interplanetary file system. And that's a cool thing, because basically IPFS is like a file sharing. It is a file sharing system. But there are a lot of people involved, and because the Everpedia network, which includes, as I say, a copy of the English language Wikipedia, it's spread out among all of those different blockchain nodes and all of the different computers that help host IPFS. Well, that means that there is no single neck for the sensors of the world to cut. Which is pretty darn cool. I think that if there's going to be any sort of selection or censorship that goes on, it should happen at the app level. It shouldn't happen at the network level. In the same way that if there's going to be any censorship of the internet that goes on, it definitely shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be done by ICANN or any other organization that manages the protocols that run the internet. It should happen. Well, it shouldn't happen at all. But anyway, it should happen at the level of much smaller entities, right? So now we can say that Wikipedia, or at least the copy that lives on Everpedia, is now uncensorable. It's the first time that the world's knowledge cannot be censored by countries like China and North Korea and Turkey and whatever, which is huge, I think. I think that's a great thing. And that in itself, if there were nothing else that we could say about the Everpedia network, that in itself would be like a defining huge selling point, but it's not the only one, not actually far from it. So I want to explain then the part of the vision that really got me on board, the phase 2 or greater wiki phase of Everpedia. So we're going to be starting this next year. And it's always been our plan not just to host the contents of everpedia.org on the Everpedia network. It's not, and should be true of all blockchains in my opinion, it's not just a front end for one particular company or one particular database. It should be open to all. It should be designed so that it will remain that way. And so, that is why we have already started talking to some other encyclopedia publishers, and they're actually excited in some cases and very interested in other cases to put their stuff on the blockchain, right? I'm very excited that they're excited, because that means that there will be, in fact, a whole series of competing articles on the same topics. And then there will be, at that time, ratings for the articles, as I was saying. There will be metadata. So one of the great things, at least to my mind, one of the great things about EOS is that they've committed to working on an account system, a blockchain level account systems where individuals can, well, I'm not going to get into the details, but that it will mean that it's possible for people to share reliable information about themselves and for other people to rate the raters, basically. And then that will make it possible to sort the articles again, to rank and re-rank articles according to the data. So that's pretty exciting to me. So why think then that the network will grow? First of all, as I said, there's going to be participation from many different sources, right? Different encyclopedia publishers, reference publishers, and just individuals. We're going to make it possible for people to write apps that will make it easy for people to upload their own encyclopedia articles to the blockchain and go head-to-head with Wikipedia and the rest. So just built into the whole idea of a decentralized network is this greater levels of participation, or at least support for greater levels of participation. Also, this will be the first project to rate all of Wikipedia independently of Wikipedia. If you go to Wikipedia pages and you look at the talk pages, which is like the discussion page for the articles, they actually will give their own self-ratings of articles. But what they don't do is they don't invite independent experts to give their ratings. And there just have been no really significant scientific studies. There have been a few. They haven't been significant. They haven't really done a really good job at rating the articles in Wikipedia. This is going to be huge, when the infrastructure is in place to do that. And not just Wikipedia. You'll be able to compare the ratings for Wikipedia with the ratings of the articles on the same topics from Britannica and Everpedia and all the other sources out there. And I think people will start paying attention to that, especially if you can sort the data according to your biases. Here's another reason to think that the network will grow. It will be a huge career perk to have the top-rated article. So if, as I think, there's a quorum of raters for articles, then beginning with the most popular articles, the ones that are rated the most, there's going to be a real competition among the raters to have the, or not among the raters, among article writers to have the very best article. And it'll be a feather in your cap, right? Like there's probably a few blockchain experts out there here, more expert than I am. I'll bet some of you guys can write a better encyclopedia article about blockchain than any that is online right now. Well, you'd be able to prove it by uploading your article to this system. And then what if you could brag that your article was the top-rated article about blockchains? That would be like winning the Nobel Prize of knowledge about that topic as soon as there were enough people involved. It would be a huge competition. Well, it could be. It depends on how many people are involved in the ratings. But I think there's going to be a lot of people involved in the ratings. So, and then of course, there is the possibility to earn money for your work, which is pretty important because, when I was trying to organize people to work on Nupedia, the predecessor of Wikipedia, one of the problems that we had, one of the reasons why Nupedia didn't take off is that most of the people we were trying to recruit were academics, and academics don't want to write encyclopedia articles for free. Mostly they don't. Some of them are okay with it, but most of them look at that as kind of drudge work and they don't want to do it, for free. Well, this actually gives them the opportunity to both prove that they can actually write a better article than anybody else on the topic of their specialization, and also be paid for it, right? So I also think that the articles will, in time, be better. I think that it will, for various reasons, right? There's something that I think is already the case in phase one of the development of Everpedia. Having an ownership stake in the Everpedia network gives everybody who's associated with it the aligned interest in keeping the quality of the content on the network high. Just important. And then, as I think I said, you also have to stake a small number of tokens in order to get anything on the network, so that if you put up something that is just literal garbage, some copy of a proprietary article that hasn't been approved, or some other narrowly defined class of article that we've agreed to downvote, that will be downvoted, and you'll lose the amount that you stake. So again, there's going to be a low benchmark, but a definite benchmark for quality. And then, as I was explaining before, I won't repeat myself, there's this going to be a natural head-to-head competition to write the best article on each topic. It's how it should work in Wikipedia. Why don't they ever do that? I don't know. So, and I also think that people will be motivated to fill in the many, many, many gaps that are now on Wikipedia. If they don't have to negotiate with the Wikipedia community when they're writing about some very specialized topic in their area of study, or maybe even about their products, or who knows what the specialized topic would be, if they don't have to jump through the hoops that Wikipedia has put up, but merely have to face the tribunal of other people's ratings of their work, then people will be much more motivated to fill in all the gaps that Wikipedia has left behind. And there are a lot. I mean, I think there could be hundreds of millions of articles, if not billions of articles. And we still might not come to the end of them, of the topics. So let me conclude with the view from 2028, a little speculation. I like to do this. I think that, first of all, you can imagine that there will be multiple articles, many articles on the most popular topics, and multiple articles even on very specialized topics. Like, so I'm an ex-academic, so I can imagine like 3 or 4, maybe a dozen different articles about something called epistemic circularity. It's what I wrote my dissertation on. And that's a very specialized sort of topic. And just imagine that the best rated article is going to have to be awesome, even on specialized topics, right? And then, so that means that the top rated article will have to be brilliantly written, otherwise it won't rise to the top. But maybe more exciting than the issue of quality for me is the idea that you'll get that level of quality for different points of view, right? So let's say that most of the first participants who work on the Everpedia articles about God are Christians or atheists, which I think is pretty plausible. And then it turns out that the average rating of the top-rated article, according to Muslims, for the articles on God is 3 out of 5. All right? Then the Muslims are going to be really, really motivated to write a better article according to their lights about God. And just imagine that happening over and over again for all different communities and all different topics. There's going to be an economic incentive or academic incentive, or I don't know what you want to call it. There's a network incentive, right, to get the best statement of knowledge according to all different communities on all different topics. And that then makes it possible, or will, I hope, make it possible, to compare the most brilliantly written statements of knowledge on, well, let's change the example to jihad, right? What an Ohio conservative would say about jihad, the top-rated article, according to Ohio conservatives, would be very, very different, I think, from the top-rated article according to, I don't know, the mullahs of Iran. And yet, if you were to compare the articles, they both have to be awesome articles, right? They'd both have to be really good articles to get to the top of a topic like jihad. And then you would be able to learn so much about how different points of view differ. So this is what is so exciting to me about this idea. And to come back home to the point, this is why I'm excited about blockchain. Blockchain enables us to have the trust that nobody is going to take control of the whole network. It is our guarantee that it remains a neutral protocol, which enables something like this to happen, where there are all of these different points of view brilliantly stated. Right now, this sort of thing doesn't exist. All we've got is Wikipedia, right? That's not adequate. I mean, Wikipedia isn't going to give you all the different points of view about jihad. They're going to give you what they consider to be the neutral point of view about jihad. And that does not cut it, right? So this is why I am proud to join this fine team of about 15 full-time people right now. We've got some really excellent developers. The lead developers are Sam and Travis and Kedar. Kedar is a top flight, one of the best developers in blockchain in the world. And the other people here are really great to work with too. Teddy, the CEO, he's actually the youngest of the executives, and he started and I think had a successful exit when he was like 18 or something like that. And Mahmoud is one of the co-founders of Genius.com, used to be called Rap Genius. He's a character. He's a lot of fun. So anyway, if you check us out right now and you try to create an account, I want to set expectations here. Since we've moved to the blockchain in July, in order to make any edits, you've actually had to go via the blockchain, which means you had to actually own some EOS and use Scatter in your browser or your desktop app. Which is that is way too hard for most people, period, even for a lot of programmers. That's a lot to ask. So we are solving that problem, and we should have a really elegant and easy to use front end ready by spring. Once you actually get on the system, it's extremely easy to use. It's a WYSIWYG interface. But if you actually own some EOS and are using Scatter, then it's probably going to be easy for you. If you're not doing that yet, then it's going to be harder. But don't worry, it's going to get a lot easier. Probably what we will do is create massive amounts of accounts for people and basically transfer ownership to them when they want to take ownership of their accounts after they've developed $5 of value or whatever it would be, I don't know. So, so there's some of my coordinates, and I'm happy to talk to anybody. As I say, I'm in Ohio. I'd love to make some Ohio connections. And I'm going to call it an evening, and thanks for listening for so long.